Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Infrastructure stalemate. No deal yet because there's been no vote. The House expected to continue talks today, and the White House continuing talks on the larger social spending package too. A senator introduces a bill to require vaccines or tests in order to fly within the country. This as a Republican move to block Biden's vaccine mandate is shut down in the Senate. Action by the Drug Enforcement Administration leads to over 800 arrests across the U.S. for fake pills laced with fentanyl, many of the pills containing potentially fatal doses. And how are political parties preparing for next year's midterms? Republican organizations are already coming out with a series of new campaign ads. Today could be the day. Then again, yesterday was supposed to be the day. The battle over the infrastructure bill continues. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
No deal in Washington, D.C. yet. After hours of negotiations, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi delayed a vote on a $1 trillion infrastructure bill Thursday night. She said there will be a vote Friday, but it's unclear if that'll actually happen. The delay due to disagreements among Democrats. Progressives threatening to block the bill because they want it tied to a larger $3.5 trillion social safety net package.
I think we feel comfortable that we're being listened to, and I think it is clear to those that are part of our discussions that we are very serious about where we stand on this issue.
But leading moderates say $3.5 trillion is too expensive.
The needs we have right now and what we can afford to do without basically changing our whole society to an entitlement mentality.
Senator Joe Manchin saying his top line number is $1.5 trillion.
We're going to come to an agreement. I'm trying to make sure they understand. I'm at $1.5 trillion. I think $1.5 trillion does exactly the necessary things we need to do.
Another moderate, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, declined to say whether she agreed with Manchin's proposal. Her office says she shared her priorities, including dollar figures, with both the White House and the Senate Majority Leader, and claims that she hasn't done so are false. Biden's spending proposal would raise taxes on corporations and the wealthy. It also has multiple measures benefiting labor unions. Labor analyst James Shirk, a former Trump advisor, writes, "Unfortunately, many provisions in the reconciliation bill are designed to push workers into unions, rather than leaving the choice in their hands." He says the bill's labor provisions include prohibiting employers from holding staff meetings to discuss the pros and cons of unionization, giving tax credits for union political campaigns, and funding the Department of Labor to reclassify independent contractors as employees. The White House expects talks about the larger social spending plan to continue Friday, too. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
Senator Dianne Feinstein introduced a bill yesterday. It would require anyone flying within the country to show proof of vaccination or test negative for the virus. This comes as teachers in New York City take their request to block the vaccine mandate to the Supreme Court. Senator Feinstein's bill would allow a person flying in a domestic flight to show proof of full recovery from the virus, in addition to proof of vaccination or a negative test. Feinstein said her act would prevent a surge over the holiday season. The CDC currently requires international travelers to test negative or to have recovered, and health officials say vaccines protect against the development of severe cases and hospitalization, but studies have shown that vaccines don't necessarily stop the virus from spreading when breakthrough cases happen. And on Thursday, the Senate stopped Republicans' attempt to block Biden's vaccine mandate for private businesses. Republican from Kansas Senator Roger Marshall introduced the amendment, but it failed to pass as the vote was split 50-50. Falling short of the 60 votes needed. Marshall said, "No precedent exists in American history for punishing private employers who don't enforce government vaccination edicts." And he alleged that House Democrats wanted to increase the fines up to tenfold as a way to pay for their out-of-control spending. Yet Senator Patrick Leahy, a Democrat who voted against the amendment, said it weakens one of the country's strongest tools to get people safely through the crisis. New York City teachers are petitioning the Supreme Court to block the city's vaccine mandate for them. Their petition says the city's vaccine mandate has created an unconstitutional burden on public school teachers. It goes on to say that instead of letting teachers opt out of the vaccine and choose to be tested weekly, something that other municipality employees can do, they must go on unpaid leave for nearly a year. Yet earlier this week, a federal court allowed the mandate to stay, and teachers have till 5 p.m. on Friday to comply. And a Department of Education spokesperson said the city's Department of Health can implement the mandate as it is grounded in science and health officials' expertise, she says. What's more, the largest healthcare provider in New York State is denying some benefits to employees fired for going against the vaccine mandate. Northwell Health told workers they will lose contributions to their retirement plans unless they are older than 62, and they are denied payouts of any remaining paid time off. The company did not comment on personnel issues, but it did say they are taking an aggressive approach to vaccinate all employees and ensure patient safety is not compromised. Republicans in both the Arkansas legislature and the U.S. Congress are pushing for a recognition of natural immunity from the CCP virus. They say this has never been more important since numerous unvaccinated workers could soon lose their jobs. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Lawmakers in Arkansas advanced a bill Wednesday that would allow workers with natural antibodies against the CCP virus to opt out of vaccine requirements. The bill would also require the state to pay unemployment benefits to workers who lose their jobs for refusing to comply with a vaccine mandate. According to Arkansas lawmakers, the state's House and Senate Public Health Committees endorsed the legislation. It now goes to the full House for consideration. The CDC doesn't recognize natural immunity against the CCP virus as a substitute for vaccination. The agency said on August 6 that a study from Kentucky found that the vaccine offers higher protection than previous COVID-19 infection. However, a group of Congress members with medical degrees is calling on the CDC to change its stance. On Tuesday, 15 Republican lawmakers from the Doctors Caucus sent a letter to the CDC strongly urging them to acknowledge natural immunity. They say it's never been more important to recognize natural immunity because so many workers, including members of the military and healthcare professionals, could soon lose their jobs for not complying with mandates. The letter argues that natural immunity has been dismissed without adequate scientific acknowledgement and accuses the CDC of ignoring scientific evidence when making policies to achieve herd immunity. The letter cites about a dozen studies that support natural immunity and references recent data from Israel that suggests natural immunity offers greater protection from severe disease than the vaccine does. In some parts of the world, such as countries in the European Union, natural immunity is already recognized as a form of natural immunity on par with vaccination. The lawmakers have given the CDC until October 18th to respond. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
The Drug Enforcement Administration announced more than 800 arrests and a seizure of more than 1.8 million fake pills. It's part of a 2-month operation and crackdown on the illicit fentanyl.
Counterfeit pills that have been brought into the United States have been illegally produced in Mexico using precursor chemicals supplied by Chinese companies. Now, we will be working closely with Mexico to seek assistance to close these labs, and we call on China to work with us to help stop the misuse of precursor chemicals for criminal purposes.
It's critical to understand that the fentanyl and the fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills that we seized in this surge are being mass-produced in Mexico by the Sinaloa and the CJNG drug cartels. These are the criminal organizations that we believe are responsible for producing the drugs that are flooding our streets.
Authorities arrested the 810 drug traffickers in cities, suburbs, and rural communities across the United States. Fentanyl is blamed for the escalating overdose death rate in the United States. In the past, fentanyl was mainly mixed with heroin. Now it's often pressed into small blue tablets to closely match the color and markings of prescription oxycodone pills. The U.S. Deputy Attorney General said in a statement, opioids were responsible for nearly 3/4 of the more than 93,000 fatal drug overdoses in the United States in 2020. Drug Enforcement Agency testing shows 4 out of 10 fentanyl-laced pills contain a potentially deadly dose. A report by the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission shows China remains the primary source of illegal fentanyl being trafficked into the United States, despite the Chinese regime banning it in 2019. While thousands of Haitians were detained, deported, or expelled from a camp on Mexico's frontier with Texas last week, many others traveled west to the border city of Tijuana. They're hoping to avoid a crackdown aimed at stemming the rising tide of migrants.
as thousands of Haitian migrants were detained, deported, or expelled from an impromptu border camp built along the Texas-Mexico border last week. Many others traveled west to the border city of Tijuana, hoping to avoid a crackdown aimed at stemming the rising tide of migrants. Many forced to pay thousands of dollars to evade detection and avoid popular routes. Fellow Haitians who reached the doorstep of the United States 5 years ago, however, have become a valuable resource for those fleeing the country this time, smoothing the pathway north. Since July, the network has also helped some Haitians to cross into the United States. Settling in various parts of Tijuana, some Haitians work in restaurants and factories, while others have businesses ranging from cell phone shops to car washes, gardening, plumbing, and interior decoration. Felix Deem arrived in Mexico from Haiti 9 years ago and has been living in Tijuana for a year. He is a worker at a local factory.
I am working here. I don't want to leave to go to the U.S. Recently, a lot of my compatriots crossed the border and many of them were deported. I can live well here as well, as long as I'm working.
Reuters spoke to more than 20 Haitians and Mexicans in Tijuana who said they were advising new Haitian arrivals where to stay or had offered them rooms to rent themselves. Baja California, the state where Tijuana lies, has traditionally been one of the fastest growing in Mexico, and the local labor minister told Reuters the Haitians are welcome.
The GOP is already hard at work preparing for the midterm elections next year. They aim to win back both the Senate and the House and are providing new training for staffers and launching new ads. Let's take a look at their strategy.
This is from a series of campaign ads the National Republican Congressional Committee, or NRCC, launched for the 2022 midterm elections. They made 17 of them just this week alone, and they all target Democratic Congress members who won their seats by thin margins in 2020.
Crushing small businesses and hurting middle-class families. Tell Cindy Axney we can't afford this.
The ad focuses on the new tax reforms that Democrats are looking to enact. That's in order to pay for social programs like taxpayer-funded preschool and community college. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is working with his committee chairs to draw up a plan, one they say will show voters why they should elect Republicans. They will include issues like the border crisis, inflation, gas prices, and the Afghanistan withdrawal. And to reach out to more voters, the NRCC and the Republican National Committee, or RNC, are also holding 5 data and digital boot camps. The training sessions aim to make their staffers, operatives, consultants, and activists campaign more effectively. Deputy Chief Data Officer of the RNC, Justin Kemp, tells Fox News the sessions cover topics including working with the voter file, building turnout projections and vote goals, polling and modeling, online fundraising, and much more. 3 of the 5 sessions already took place.
The effort to recall a Seattle councilwoman is set to be certified. Petition organizers say they have enough signatures. Locals say she should be recalled because she misused resources to promote a ballot initiative and allegedly misused her position to let hundreds of people into City Hall after hours. They also said she violated the state's confidentiality program by leading a march to the home of the Seattle mayor. A judge said last year that 4 of 6 allegations against Councilwoman Shama Sawant were legally sufficient for a recall vote. Sawant's appeal to the Washington State Supreme Court was rejected. Washington State's Constitution allows recalls for officials who commit wrongdoing, abuse power, or violate their oath of office. Election workers confirmed reaching 105% of the amount of signatures needed and are prepared for any court challenges. Sawant did not respond to a request for comment from the Epoch Times. Visitors are flocking to Hawaii to watch the eruption of one of Earth's most active volcanoes. Footage showed the crater filled with hot red lava and billowing clouds of volcanic gas rising into the air.
Red-hot, bubbling lava on Thursday was filling the Halemaumau crater of Hawaii's Kilauea volcano during its first eruption in nearly a year. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey, which said the lava presented no immediate threat to populated areas.
All the activity is confined to Halemaumau. So we have fountaining, we have fissures, and we have lava lake activity. All that is within Halemaumau, so it's all confined for the present. Seismic activity, tilt, etc., that's all showing that it's in the summit region. It hasn't gone elsewhere.
Even so, residents who live downwind of the volcano were warned of possible exposure to sulfur dioxide and other volcanic gases that can irritate the respiratory system. Still, visitors in awe of the lava's glow and pluming smoke were allowed to check it out from a safe distance. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, which the eruption was taking place in, remained open. Kilauea, Hawaii's youngest and most active volcano, began its eruption Wednesday afternoon. It last erupted in December 2020 when a water-filled lake that had formed at the crater evaporated and was replaced by a lava lake.
Gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson says it has moved its headquarters from Massachusetts to Tennessee. The company says a recent gun control legislation proposal is the reason for the move. The company's CEO said in a statement that the company has no choice but to move if business is to stay healthy. Smith & Wesson cites legislation circulating in Massachusetts that would ban the firm from making products that made up over 60% in company revenue last year. The bill is labeled for stopping mass shootings by banning so-called assault weapons. The Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development said the company's move will bring about 750 jobs and an investment of around $125 million. But MassLive reported that the mayor of Springfield, Massachusetts, says Smith & Wesson's decision will cause the loss of 550 local jobs. Republican and Democratic senators are united today in criticizing Facebook. They questioned a company executive over what they call the toxic effects of Instagram on kids and teenagers. Here's more in the Senate hearing.
Number one, have you quantified how many children have taken their own lives because of your products?
Senators on both sides of the aisle on Thursday took direct aim at Facebook, grilling its global head of safety over leaked internal reports which show that its Instagram app damages the mental health of teenagers, and Facebook knows it.
Facebook's own researchers described Instagram itself as a, quote, perfect storm.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal chaired the hearing, which was billed as protecting kids online.
It has attempted to deceive the public and us in Congress about what it knows, and it has weaponized childhood vulnerabilities against children themselves. It's chosen growth over children's mental health and well-being, greed over preventing the suffering of children.
Facebook has been under fire after the Wall Street Journal reported internal documents showed that the social media company was aware that Instagram harmed the mental health of young users.
Was the Wall Street Journal not telling the truth when it said, quote, 13% of British users and 6% of American users trace their desire to kill themselves to Instagram? That is from the Wall Street Journal. Was that true or false?
The company's global safety head, Antigone Davis, pushed back against the withering criticism and instead highlighted what she argued were more positive impacts of the social media giant.
The research showed that many teens say that Instagram is helping them with hard issues that are so common to being a teen.
Is Facebook withholding information about studies they've done on negative mental health consequences?
Actually, I would say that the one-sided and misleading reports actually were in the Wall Street Journal, which didn't provide the full context.
Despite Facebook's insistence on the positive benefits of Instagram, the company this week put on ice its plans to launch an Instagram for under 13-year-olds amid growing opposition to the project. The Senate will hear more on Facebook next week when a Facebook whistleblower is scheduled to testify about the company and how it handles children's safety online.
A video on social media is once again bringing attention to the New York City subway. One man has taken the mobile game Subway Surfer to another level. The video starts with one man running on top of a subway car and another man yelling at him to get down. The man with the vest then starts throwing his shoes, apparently trying to knock the man off the car, but he just catches the second shoe and throws it back. The train then leaves the station with the man still on top of it, riding off into the sunset. Fire crews in Sequoia National Park in California's Sierra Nevada are covering the base of some of the park's famous giant trees with fire protection wrap. The wrap is meant to help guard the trees as more than 1,700 firefighters battle the KNP complex fires. The blaze complex had covered nearly 80 square miles by Wednesday.
What you see behind us is the General Sherman tree covered in fire protection wrap, which is what's wrapping it around the base to protect the base from fire.
The closest that the KMP complex fire got to the General Sherman tree was about 125 yards, and that spot occurred on September 19th, 2021. One of the reasons that the fire didn't get any closer was crews were actually quickly able to actually contain that spot fire because of the recent fire history within the giant forest.
An information officer for the National Park Service said they have conducted prescribed burns in Sequoia National Park for more than 50 years to reduce the vulnerability of the massive trees. He also noted the giant sequoias live for centuries and have survived many fires over their long history. An off-duty firefighter caught a major accident on camera the moment when a train collided with a paused semi-truck in Indianapolis. The Indianapolis Fire Department said in a statement on their Facebook page that the crash caused no injuries. The department also said the flash fire that resulted from the crash was because of starch contained within the trunk and was quickly put out. Coming up, artists find ease and calm at 3 World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. The company that owns the properties offers artists free studios in the raw, unleased floors. And a small piece of tracking technology embedded in firearms could put U.S. troops at risk. Some military units use this technology to track weapons, but enemies could also detect soldiers on battlefields using the same technology. All that and more here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Radio frequency identification, or RFID tags, is a kind of technology that can help supermarkets track their stock and allow drivers to zip through toll booths. Some U.S. military units also use them to keep track of guns, but the Associated Press found that RFID could actually put troops at risk. Let's take a look.
New field tests by the Associated Press found that even low-tech enemies could detect U.S. troops on the battlefield. That's because some units in the U.S. Army and Air Force are using RFID technology to keep track of troops' firearms.
We are going to utilize radio frequency identification tags, and we are going to discreetly place them on the weapons to positively track and manage every single weapon on base.
The Air Force says this will save them thousands of hours they spend each year counting weapons. but the Pentagon acknowledges it poses a significant security risk in combat. They say RFID tags should only be embedded in firearms used only at a firing range, not in combat or to guard bases. Contractors who install RFID technology say the tags can be read only within a limited range, typically a few dozen feet. But in field testing, two prominent cybersecurity experts showed that a tag inside a rifle can be detected from significantly farther, and all they needed to detect them were inexpensive components that could fit in a backpack.
Sure, take a couple steps and then turn around, something like that. A little more. There. I'm reading it there.
Okay, so let me go out there.
That's a really good idea.
So right now,
Good where he is now.
he's at 69 yards.
One of the cybersecurity experts said if hackers don't follow federal regulations that limit the power of radio signals, they could detect the tags miles away. And the experts also showed how bad actors can fool the RFID reader system.
And I'll put this dummy in, close the box, and scan the box, and oh look, the rifle's still in there.
The Marine Corps rejects putting RFID tags in weapons due to their security risk. The Navy plans to do the same.
The tomb of the unknown soldier is granting the public access it hasn't seen in a century. The public will be allowed to place flowers at the tomb when it honors Veterans Day, November 9th and 10th. The public will also be allowed to walk the tomb plaza. The tomb of the unknown soldier has served as the heart of the Arlington National Cemetery since 1921. The marble sarcophagus marks the final resting place of an unidentified veteran from World War I. Other remains were added in 1958 and 1984, and it serves as a surrogate for any service member lost in battle and not recovered. A downtown Manhattan skyscraper known as 3 World Trade Center offers free studio spaces to several artists. One of them has been painting the rebuilding effort of the World Trade Center complex for 12 years. Another artist lost her sister in 9/11, and painting there has helped her heal. Let's take a look.
Abstract artist Todd Stone is one of several artists that have studio spaces inside 40,000 square feet of raw, unleashed floors of 3 World Trade Center. The studios are rent-free thanks to billionaire real estate mogul Larry Silverstein and Silverstein Properties.
Part of my work has been documenting the building of One World Trade Center, from when it was a hole in the ground to when the first steel emerged, to the grid going up and the sheathing in the glass, which I bore witness to. This was the last step. This is when one was spired, with the top coming up.
Stone currently has an exhibit called Renewal at a gallery inside the World Trade Center Transportation Hub. His works document the 20-year rebuilding effort.
What I'm hoping this picture triggers is a recognition of the strength of our city, the strength of our country, to renew itself in the wake of what happened down here.
Abstract artist Carrie Irvine is another artist with a studio there. She lost her sister in 9/11.
She worked in the South Tower, so it is pretty ironic that I'm here. It is not how I got in here, technically, but it is why I'm here. I live in the West Village, and I never came down here. It was actually still kind of terrifying to me.
Irvine had stopped painting after 9/11 because it was too hard for her to be alone and to paint. It wasn't until 5 years later that she became a full-time artist. She wants to thank Silverstein Properties for offering this free studio space.
That generosity has changed my life, absolutely changed my life. I do believe working in these studios, in these buildings, has been the last step of my healing. It really helped to bring closure. This is not a scary place for me down here. I'm very at peace.
Once the floors are leased, the artists are shuffled to another floor or another building.
U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai plans to unveil the Biden administration's long-awaited strategy on U.S.-China trade in an upcoming speech at a Washington think tank. Since taking office in March, Tai has been conducting a top-to-bottom review of Washington's China trade policy. Tai's office says she will deliver remarks on her review of China trade policy at the Center for Strategic Studies in Washington 10 a.m. Monday. It will mark the start of the final 3 months of the Phase 1 U.S.-China trade deal formed under the Trump administration. Biden administration officials say China has not met Phase 1 trade deal commitments. President Biden has kept in place former President Trump's tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of Chinese imports. Tai has said the United States faces very large challenges in its trade relationship with China. She has asked Congress for new trade law tools to counteract massive Chinese state subsidies. And now we turn to China. Shipping rates from China to the United States have scaled to new highs. It now costs up to $20,000 per 40-foot box, but rates from the U.S. to China are at less than $1,000. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more of the details.
A blow to China's exports. Shipping rates for freight containers traveling from China to the U.S. have reached a record high. The virus outbreak in several countries slowed container turnaround times. On one of the busiest shipping routes, the China-U.S. East Coast route, the price to ship a container increased 400% compared to last year. In October last year, the price to ship one container was close to $4,000. This month, the price per container rose to close to $20,000. Similarly, shipping freight containers from China to Canada also costs an average of $20,000. The president of China's Port Association says the spike in shipping prices followed a rebound in virus cases in other countries. It slowed turnover speeds at major ports to around 7 to 8 days. These high prices are one-sided, though. Data from freight tracking firm Freightos shows that a shipping container from North America to China costs less than $1,000. The power shortage in China has spread to at least 20 provinces, and it's pushing up the cost of key commodities. For example, cement prices escalated repeatedly, some items tripling in value in just 10 days. In mid-September, a cement producer in the southeastern city of Nanchang announced a price hike of $5. And just 5 days later, another rise of $13. 4 days after that, one more rise of $16. The Southern Autonomous Region of Guangxi imposed a restriction, saying cement production for September cannot exceed 40% of the monthly average from first half of the year. And the coming month's quota will be adjusted according to September's production. Data from Digital Cement Network shows that the average price of cement has risen for 3 consecutive weeks since the start of September. The Deputy Secretary General of China Cement Association says in addition to a power shortage, rising coal prices are adding pressure. A commentator tells Radio Free Asia these energy restrictions are said to be caused by industrial policy adjustments from Beijing. Since the cement market's peak season is approaching, its price is expected to keep rising.
As winter nears, China is trying to quell fears about power shortages. On Wednesday, Beijing demanded that railway companies and local authorities ship vital coal supplies to utilities.
Fear of power shortages in China are soaring just as winter approaches. The party now seeking to put those fears to rest. On Wednesday, Beijing ordered railway companies and local authorities to ship their coal supplies to utilities. That's as China's key industrial regions grapple with power cuts, especially in 3 northeastern provinces. Now the province's nearly 100 million residents are suffering too. This convenience store worker in Shenyang said the subway was still in operation, but water and electricity were all cut, with people buying candles and borrowing portable chargers. The restrictions come after a collision of tight coal supplies, tougher emissions standards, and high manufacturing demand, which pushed the price of coal to record levels. And along with it came nationwide curbs on power use. In Shenyang City, home to 8 million people, a power cut hit the city for around 8 hours last week, leaving streets in complete darkness.
It was completely dark. I could see nothing because the power was cut from everything. I ride an electric scooter and the light of the scooter was on. Everything else was dark.
Officials have assured residents that all households will have power and heating, but power rationing still remains in effect.
Just ahead, an ancient breed of Irish goats is deployed to protect the hills around one of Dublin's most affluent suburbs from wildfires. And a unique museum in Russia is reviving a traditional part of Russian life. It's recreating old, damaged bells so visitors can now hear what they sounded like brand new. Stay tuned to find out more.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
In every country communism gains power, authoritarianism and death followed in its wake. Communism promises a world without suffering, and yet, in its execution, does the exact opposite. Following Lenin's death, Stalin's 29-year reign killed an estimated 60 to 66 million people. More famines and purges would occur. The very peasants that communism was supposed to benefit instead starved to death under its rule. The party dictates what is right and wrong. Mao ended up killing between 50 million and 70 million people. As an investigative journalist, I want to understand why.
Despite weekly protests in France against their health pass and a decrease in the number of positive cases, the French government may extend the pass for another year, a proposition that has met with disbelief among some French people. NTD correspondent David Vives has the story.
The French government plans to extend the country's state of emergency until next year's summer. The use of the health pass, which is a proof of vaccination or negative test, might be extended to next summer, government spokesman Gabriel Attal said on Wednesday. This is despite a continuing decrease of deaths due to COVID for a month and a half. Lawyer Carlo Alberto Brusa addressed complaints about the government's decision. He says that the health pass is a violation of people's rights.
This is about discrimination, and when it is based on health conditions, it is unacceptable and punishable under the French Criminal Code. Although this is what our society will be composed of in the near future with the health pass extension. Discrimination at work, discrimination inside the public services, mandatory vaccination for healthcare workers.
The government has extended the health pass to schools and students. Dozens of students got their COVID-19 jabs in school in Paris on Friday, as France gears up to require teens to present a health pass for access to several public places.
Even now, there is discrimination at school. If you're not vaccinated, maybe you won't be allowed to go to school. This is the path we're taking. Those who are not vaccinated will have to stay home. This is called a sanitary protocol, but the government takes this as rule of law.
The state of emergency means that the Prime Minister can take restrictive measures which will remain undisputed. This applies to curfews, lockdowns, and mandatory vaccinations. According to Brusa, this emergency state goes against the rule of law. He says any law has to be understood by all to be fairly complied with, and this is according to the French Constitution. But today the law seems to fit political agendas.
Day after day, this situation doesn't make any sense. The rule of law is being trampled by the government. The law is only used in a coercive way to force the people to comply with a political decision. This is what I'm calling the health dictatorship.
Thousands of people protest every week across France, and thousands of complaints have been addressed to the government, but that hasn't managed to overturn the health pass. David Vives, NTD News.
Within weeks, vaccinated Australians will be allowed to travel overseas, with the government bringing forward plans to phase out an 18-month-long ban on international flights. Here's Prime Minister Scott Morrison on the move.
It will be time very soon that we will be able to open those international borders again, and that will enable Australians who are fully vaccinated and Australians and residents of Australia who are overseas, who are fully vaccinated, to be able to travel again and to be able to lift those caps on our airports in states where they have moved into phase C of the program.
Residents in states with an 80% vaccination rate will be free to leave the country and, on return, be required to home quarantine for a week. The United Kingdom, the United States, Japan, Singapore, Canada, and Fiji have been flagged as the first countries where commercial flights to and from Australia will resume. Pedestrians in Denmark's second-largest city are walking on air, or so it seems. The city of Aarhus began testing out what are called 3D crossings. The goal is to convince motorists and cyclists to slow down and give way to passing pedestrians. The new crossings are essentially optical illusions painted on the city streets. By adding angled shadows to the regular four rectangular white markings from a certain angle, they suddenly appear to be hovering slightly above the ground. Authorities began testing the 3D crossings this week, and they'll be installed at 3 city center locations. It's not the first time Aarhus, Denmark's second-largest city, has experimented with its pedestrian crossings. In 2019, authorities installed Viking-themed traffic lights to echo the city's close connection to seafaring. The pilot project is set to run until May 2024. Authorities plan to monitor how traffic and pedestrians respond to the new additions. Bell ringing used to play an important role in the traditional Russian life. To revive the tradition, a bell museum in Siberia is now recreating old, damaged bells. That's so people can hear what they sounded like when they were new. Here's more.
Located in the Russian city of Siberia, the Novosibirsk Museum of Bell Ringing is home to over 400 bells. Its collection ranges from old, yet intact ones to those smashed into tiny pieces. But there's one thing every bell enthusiast wants: to hear them ring.
Because we are studying the bell art of Siberia and love Siberian bells, of course we want to know what they sounded like. It's probably simple human curiosity multiplied by scientific interests.
Experts are working to achieve this goal by creating replicas of the old bells. In 2018, they launched a project dubbed Let's Return the Voice to the Bell. To ensure the sound is accurate, they first take 3D scans of the bells and analyze the chemical composition of each. Sometimes the work isn't done in the workshop, but high up in the bell towers across the country.
We scanned 22 bells here within the project, and we scanned about 50 bells on these trips. Now we probably have about 100 3D copies of Siberian bells cast before the revolution.
While the team does its best to replicate the ancient bell-making process, some technology has changed.
We are unable to repeat all the processes of casting from beginning to end the way they were in the past. First, we don't have the furnaces with which they used to smelt. Bronze was always tapped from the bottom of the furnace, and now we pour this smelted bronze from the top.
So far, 3 copies of the bells have been cast. They now live in the museum along with their prototypes. There, everyone can listen to and compare the sound of the new and old samples. Visitors also get to try bell ringing for themselves.
There's not this clearly planned finger action here. There's a solid improvisation here. The way you hear, that's the way you play. It's very interesting and exciting.
Bells have played an important role in the traditional lives of Russian people. On top of the church event, the ringing of bells signified danger, fire, and even weather changes.
The life of a Russian man was unthinkable without a bell ringing. It has been said long ago it accompanied a person from birth to death. All significant events of life were accompanied by bell ringing.
The oldest bell in the museum dates back to 1817, while the largest weighs over 300 pounds and supposedly came from Poland.
A teenager and his ornithologist mother set out a mission in March 2020 to spot, count, and record the birds they saw in their Colombian town of El Carmen de Vibral. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Jacobo Rendon works with binoculars and a borrowed camera, but his first passion was illustration.
I've always enjoyed drawing. Since I was 8 years old, I'd pick up one of my mom's bird photography books and I would draw whatever seemed easiest.
After classes went virtual because of pandemic lockdowns, what had been a mere school project turned into a passion project, creating a photographic and illustrated guide to the area's urban avian life in an effort to inform and inspire.
It's an act of awareness, of generosity, because we have to learn to take care of what we have. And if we don't know it, we can't take care of it. So the fact that we are giving this guide to the public is aimed at creating an impact, and for people to learn to take care of their surroundings.
After he posted a video online, unsolicited donations poured in along with encouraging messages from strangers around the world.
I hope the guide inspires others, especially young people, because we're the ones who will be here in the coming years. We're going to be responsible for our planet.
And his mother is certainly proud.
It has also been the motto of our home and family to serve the community. The fact that he's doing it and that he's in line with this thought makes his father and I very happy.
The project recently earned Rendon recognition from the Action for Nature nonprofit, becoming one of its 2021 International Young Eco-Hero winners. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An ancient breed of Irish goats has been deployed to protect the hills around one of Dublin's most affluent suburbs from wildfires.
Old Irish goats are a bearded indigenous breed that love to eat the highly flammable vegetation. The local council hopes a herd of 25 will leave the North Dublin suburb of Howth less flammable.
Howth was targeted by a lot of fire, so there's a lot of gorse here and it's very flammable. The goats on the other hand love gorse, so it's a win-win in that sense. I suppose the project also focuses on the old Irish goat defining their role as a functional biodiversity crew. They're a hard-working crew.
Conservationists also hope the deployment will contribute to the survival of the endangered stocky goats. The old Irish goat numbered around 250,000 in the early 1900s. Conservationists feared they were extinct until some were found scattered on the western mountains of Mulroney.
They're up for the job, they're keen to do it. It also instills key conservation grazing principles to tackle fire prevention, habitat management, and the control of invasive species. So it's the old Irish ladies that have a job to do here and are well able to do it.
Padraig Brown runs the Old Irish Goat Society, a 5-acre sanctuary in Mulroney, where the wildfire prevention goats were chosen from. He says the heritage animals need a lot of support for conservation. The Grazing project is an ideal solution.
As it's easily seen today, the fires are occurring all over the world. And this is because of, to some extent, the vegetation. It may be climate change and other things. But if you reduce the biomass, reduce the vegetation, the chances of overwhelming fires and all the dangers of that to life and limb and property will be reduced.
The new herd wears GPS tracker boxes around their neck that ping if they stray, and have settled in quickly to their new surroundings. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Our minds are often running, and it can be hard to slow down or stop for even just a minute, but we can teach it to rest. Let's get some tips. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. In a quiet room, we can find stillness. And in that stillness, we can contemplate our own minds. What we often find is that the mind is very restless. It wants to take care of 1,000 things because it is feeling uncertainty or fear. It wants to fix problems. It wants to take care of all the undone things. It wants to figure out if everything is going to be okay. It wants to get its needs met, including its basic survival needs. It also wants to obtain an understanding of meaning, connection, and love. The mind is restless, wanting to fix everything and get everything. What if we could allow our minds to rest, settling into the full sufficiency of itself, just as it is? We would need nothing in each moment other than what's required for physical survival. Here are some tips for getting started. Sit in a quiet spot. Sit in an upright but relaxed position. Your eyes can be closed or slightly open. Find stillness. Stay in this spot for at least 5 to 10 minutes. Longer over time if you like. It doesn't have to be a long time, but when you feel restless, stay for a little longer to practice with this restlessness. Rest your mind without doing anything but witnessing it. Observe your mind. Your mind will want to turn away from this direct experience. That's because it feels unsettled. It wants to get its needs met, fix problems, or deal with uncertainties or fear. That's okay. Appreciate the luminous quality of mind. It's like an energy trying to spin thought and feeling into existence. It's unaware that it's already brilliant, abundant, and enough without creating a single thought. It's luminous and beautiful. We can start to appreciate these delightful qualities of the mind. This takes curiosity, appreciation, and practice. A lot of practice. Go, sit, and practice observing your own mind. The journey inside yourself is the most important one you will take.
Happy birthday, Mickey! Friday marks 50 years since Florida's Walt Disney World opened. Plenty has changed since that day. Back then, the Magic Kingdom was the only park, and the iconic roller coaster Space Mountain wouldn't come until 4 years later. These days, the Disney compound includes Epcot, Hollywood Studio, Animal Kingdom, plus water parks, Typhoon Lagoon, and Blizzard Beach. There are also several resorts located on the property. Disney World wasn't the company's first park. It opened 16 years after Disneyland opened in California. Disney now has theme parks on 3 continents. Celebrations of the anniversary will continue for 18 months. To mark the occasion, there are new rides like Remy's Ratatouille Adventure and a new light show called Harmonious. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.